Maryland basketball gets their guy.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Maryland basketball does it. They land the 5-star prospect, Baba, who we've all been wanting, who we've all been looking forward to. Maryland football lands the 6'10" forward out of the DMV area. And let me say this. It's a huge day yesterday for Maryland basketball, and it still feels like a huge day today. Obviously, we'll get into the win, the St. Mary's game, the Mount St. Mary's game last night after this. But first, we got to start with the Terps last night during the game landing one of the top prospects that Maryland has ever landed, one of the top players that is going to be on a Maryland court. And I think the sky's the expectations for this kid. Not to say that way too early, but the talent that he has, the shot-making ability, the athleticism, the length that this kid Baba has, he has a chance to be an NBA All-Star. I don't think that's an overstatement. Obviously, that's getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. He hasn't even played a college game yet, but there is an opportunity for him to be that, and I think we're all kind of excited to see what he can become for Maryland basketball, what kind of player he can be, and we want to see how good is Baba going to be for Maryland basketball. But most importantly, Buzz Williams was able to recruit. He was able to get the job done, and before the commitment, there was a lot going on with it, and it looked like he was continuing to lean Maryland, and Maryland ended up being the decision. And I said from all along, I thought Maryland would land him. If you go back to me talking about him in any podcast, I thought Maryland was the school for him. It just made too much sense. I was like, okay, he's a DMV kid for one, but you see a lot of DMV kids that are good players that might go to public school like Baba does their freshman year, or go to a certain school their freshman year, but then they transfer to maybe a Montverde type of school or go somewhere else. That's not what Baba decided to do. He's still at his high school, James Hubert Blake, the same school he's been at, the public school, his local public school that's close to his house. Didn't try and go to one of the schools in the DMV, private schools, or any of those prep schools, or whatever the case is. He didn't try and do. And to me, I'm like, okay, he clearly likes being at home in a familiar area in high school, because I know that he had the opportunity to go other places. So I was like, Maryland makes a lot of sense for him. But being able to land him was one of the cooler things that Maryland basketball has done. And when I mean he's going to be able to come in and be, honestly, I think a number one option, I think that's totally a possibility for Maryland basketball. I think he can come in and be a guy that averages 17, 16, 17, 18 points a game. I think he's going to have the opportunity to be able to do that. And it's very rare to land a talent like this. It just is. And I think that when it's all said and done, we're going to be looking at him, and he could potentially be the number one pick next year. Like, that's entirely on the table, and you don't get a guy like that every day. And I continue to bring up Derek Queen, and Derek Queen at 30 last night. I think it was 30 last night against Jokic, which was pretty cool, and he deserves his own credit for doing what he's doing. But I keep telling everyone this. As good as Derek Queen was, as good of a basketball player that Derek Queen was, and I'm not saying that Baba's going to necessarily have as good of a freshman year or whatever the case is, but Baba's more talented than, if you want to understand the talent, he's more talented than Derek Queen is. I don't know if he's as skilled. I don't know if he's as a high IQ. He's more talented. Like the potential shot making ability from Baba, the potential the length that he has, that KD type of play style that a lot of people are relating him to because he's 6'10", has a pull-up game, can shoot the ball from all over the court. That's what kind of potential he has. And now it's about him to develop it and get it into the right spot. And it's also about Buzz Williams continuing to develop him, continuing to get him ready to play college ball. But that's the type of talent he has, and that's the type of player he potentially could become. We'll see how it ends up being. We'll see how it ends up happening. But there is a scenario where he ends up being that type of player if the Maryland basketball program does what they need to do with him in the NBA and whatever the case is. And I think in terms of next year, when you start looking at when you talk about a recruit that's going to be here next year, you have to talk about the team that's going to be here next year. And way too early, you got some guys, and that's before you got enter the transfer portal and some of those players that you potentially could add there. The team could be very good next year. I'll just leave it at that. You guys know there's a lot of different players on this team that potentially could be back next year, and the team could be really good. I really believe that. And after Buzz does work in the portal, I think you could be looking at Maryland basketball as a top 25 team next year. I think that's entirely a possibility. And then one other thing that I really wanted to hit on, man, Buzz Williams looks to be a great hire in terms of the recruiting. The one problem I thought with Buzz Williams, I thought he had energy. I thought he was a player's coach. Like people love playing for, it seems like. I didn't know if he was going to be as good as Kevin Willard when it came to the recruiting. And to me, it's become pretty obvious he might be a better recruiter than Kevin Willard. He might be a better recruiter than Kevin Willard. Look at Kevin Willard's 2026 class for Villanova right now. It ain't good. Look at Kevin Willard's 2025 class for Villanova. It's really not that crazy. Like Buzz Williams has been able to do more at Maryland than what Kevin Willard has been able to do at Villanova. Like that 2026 class for Villanova is empty. It's empty. And so my point is, my biggest concern with Buzz Williams was being able to recruit, and he's knocking it out. And he has passed the expectations of what I wanted him to do in that area. Now, on the actual basketball court, we need to see it come true, obviously, but in the recruiting world, what he's doing and being able to do it nationally, obviously, when we talk about Baba, we're talking about a guy that's from the DMV, and I was like, okay, we know that recruiting the DMV is definitely something that we've done with Kevin Willard, but Buzz Williams said, forget just the DMV, we're going to go anywhere. And look at Maryland's 2026 class. Now that we added Baba, I don't remember the last time I've seen a class this high for basketball, for football. We have the number 3 ranked recruiting class right now in basketball. The number 3 ranked class. That's pretty crazy. Like a lot of the 2026s are off the board and signed, and we have the number 3 ranked class right now with 4 guys that I think all are going to have the chance to be impact players pretty quickly at Maryland. And so you look at it, the number 3 ranked class. That's pretty insane. And Caden House and Baba headlined the class, but Adama, 4-star recruit at power forward, he's a guy that is really, really in the mold of a guy that Buzz Williams wants. Austin Brown, I think long-term, he could be a really good player for us as well. Maryland's doing their thing, man. And obviously adding Baba's incredibly exciting because you just don't normally, like, it's hard to kind of like continue to talk about it, but it's like you just don't normally get guys like this, talents like this, NBA talents, guys that have a chance to be the number 1 pick, like things like that. Like usually those go to the Dukes, the Kentuckys of the world, the Kansases of the world. It's just the way it is in college basketball, or Arizona. Like that's just what it is. And I like to think Maryland's the next tick down and is going to be able to land some of those guys, but it's 3 straight classes we've landed a 5-star prospect. So it's becoming pretty constant and something that continues to happen, which is pretty cool for Maryland. And so great to land Baba. And if you guys remember, he's the number 1 player in the 2027 class. So this is a guy that has been good. Like he reclassified up. I don't know exactly. I always try to figure out exactly why. I'm like, is it to make money sooner? I don't know. but he did reclassify up, and now you're looking at a guy that was number one recruit in the 2027 class. And if you jump up and reclassify up and you're still a top 10 player in the next class, you're a pretty cool talent. You're a pretty cool talent. And so, I mean, he obviously has places he needs to work on. Like, if he tries to get a little bit stronger, like he's always going to be a lankier, like skinnier guy. But if he gets a little bit stronger, like Maryland puts on a little bit of healthy weight to him, he could be scary. I think he fits really well at the 4 position just because of how he can stretch the defense and some of the things like that. He can play the 3, but I think at the 4 at college basketball could be really effective for him. But we're going to get ahead of ourselves. But a huge land for Buzz Williams. We'll see if there's anyone else in the class. But wow, Buzz Williams is doing his thing. He's recruiting, and it's pretty cool to see. Now we got to talk about the game last night. That was a scare. Diggy Coit gets us the win. What a performance. We'll talk about that next. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets in the same game parlays for a shot at a bigger payout. There's so many different things you guys can bet on FanDuel, so you guys have to go over to FanDuel right now. There's so many different things to bet on, whether it's college basketball, college football, the NFL, the NBA. There's so many different things, and it keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And right now, FanDuel's giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up today and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So Maryland basketball had a scary game last night against Mount St. Mary's, and it got overshadowed definitely by the Baba news. But let me say this, it was not good. Not good at all. I'm willing to be happy about where we're at because the recruiting is going really well. But let me say this, that cannot happen again. And it shows that we have so many guys in the injury report, so many guys that we kind of need back instantly, quickly. Like there's a reason this team's struggling, to be fair, because a lot of our best players are just hurt. Like I think our 2 best players right now arguably are hurt. And at a certain point, it's like, how many guys can you be down? But still, you're playing Mount St. Mary's. That's a team that you shouldn't be losing to. It's just like, that's just the reality of the situation. It's a team that we shouldn't have to go to overtime to be able to beat. And that's what happened against the Mount St. Mary's that right now are 1-4 on the year. So they're not playing very well as Maryland moves to 4-1 on the year, with only that loss being that early season loss to Georgetown. That was definitely not our best game, but we're okay. College basketball gets weird. You just have to find a way to win some games. But first of all, I want to say this before I get into the spectacular performance that we saw. Credit to Mount St. Mary's. They outplayed us because as a team that's way more talented than they are, they outplayed us in a lot of different areas. I think one of the main things that allowed them to stay in the game was they shot the 3 ball really effectively, 47% for them, which is a pretty high percentage, near 50%. Like that's a pretty good percentage. But we shot at 44%. So a big part of that was Diggy Coit having a game shooting the ball. But I think something else that was surprising was this game didn't really make sense. You look at the stat sheet and you're like, this thing doesn't really make sense. Mount St. Mary's turned over the ball 19 times. We only turn over the ball 11 times. And somehow we're still in overtime against Mount St. Mary's. Not a good look at all. We had 13 offensive rebounds. They had 12. So it's not like, oh, they just out-rebounded us or something like that. It's not like they shot the free throw percentage at a really high level. They shot 69% from the free throw line compared to us shooting 79%. They did shoot a little bit better from us from the field, but it was a weird game. Like, I'll say that. They just made some shots down the stretch, and they had a kid, this Kias kid, 7-11 from the three-point line. He had himself a day, 22 points. That was pretty cool to be able to see. But moving on to Maryland, I just want to give them credit because they gave us something entertaining to watch, which by no means do I want to be in a close game against Mount St. Mary's, but it's entertaining. It gives me something better to talk about rather coming on here and being like, yeah, Maryland won by 40 points. Like, yeah, these guys played well. They didn't give us anything to look at, but we got tested. In early season, you don't always get tested based off of the teams you play, and we got tested. But moving on to the most impressive part of the night. How about Diggy Coyne? 39 minutes played, 41 points for the kid. 41. It was a crazy game. 41 points. That's the highest in a while. It comes up a couple points short of the record. But, I mean, for a small kid that I think kind of got under-recruited, was at Kansas last year and obviously had an impact somewhat, but wasn't like a huge impact player for Kansas. I mean, he's by far exceeding my expectations. And at the start of the year, I was like, okay, this is a bench guy that comes off the bench for us and makes an impact, but he's not a guy that is going to play a ton of minutes. He's going to be a spark plug, a little pip hole off the bench because of his size, but he ain't going to be a guy that just goes in and drops 40 points for us, which I haven't seen in my time at Maryland. But that's what he did, and he kept us in that game. That 3 that he hit to send us to overtime to avoid us looking terrible and us losing the game to Mount St. Mary's, that was the reason we won the game. He was the reason. He plays. If he drops 30, we don't win the game. If he shoots 50% from the three-point line, we don't win that game. And it's a little bit scary that Diggy Coyne has to do that. But dang, 41 points, 11 to 17 from the field, 8 to 10 from the three-point line. He made 8 threes, man. That's pretty crazy. 11 from the free throw line, 3 assists, and he only had 1 turnover while doing it. You can't get a better performance than that. You just can't. And I don't know who has a career high so far in college basketball this year, but it has to be up there. I don't know if anyone's dropped that many points. I could be wrong on that, but I don't know if anyone's dropped that many points this year. 41 was pretty crazy to see, and for him to hit that shot, he's solidifying himself as a starter for us and one of our better guys, which is pretty awesome to see because we wanted to see guys really grow. And I think it makes sense when Miles Rice comes back for it to be him, Miles Rice, and Darius Adams. I think that makes sense. Andre Mills has been good, but I think Andre Mills coming off the bench could really help us because I thought Andre Mills, he scored 12 points, but 4 of 8 from the free throw line just isn't getting it done, and 0 of 3 from the three-point line is not what you want to see. He did have 8 rebounds. I think he's a really awesome athlete. He also had 4 offensive rebounds, big part of the reason why we're in that game as well. Darius Adams, I honestly want to see be way more efficient as well. 19 points. I saw something on Twitter calling him SGA, which I thought was funny. I don't know if you guys get that because of the amount of free throws he shot. He shot 21 free throws, so I thought that was kind of funny, but he did have 19 points, I guess, most of them coming from the line. He does a really good job of drawing fouls. Elijah Sanders played solid. We're missing Pharrell Payne, but that's what we'll talk about next. We get a lot of guys back, and things are honestly looking up for Maryland basketball in a lot of different ways. And the injury report, really positive. Hopefully it stays that way. But we'll talk about that next, why Maryland basketball isn't screwed right now and why there is still a lot of different things to be excited about and why we shouldn't actually be that concerned anymore and why our ceiling's still high for this year. We'll talk about that next. So, as you guys know, Pharrell Payne had one of the freakiest things that you've ever seen. So, we know Pharrell Payne went down with that injury, and everyone was like, well, he's out for the year. Well, he's done. And I was pretty annoying because you go into the year and you're like, Maryland basketball is going to be able to do this. Maryland basketball is going to be able to do that. And you get excited because you think that they have the opportunity to make the tournament and different things like that. But so we got a report that Pharrell Payne is actually going to be okay. and that he could be back in the next week or so, which is huge, absolutely huge. And my point before was I instantly came in here and I saw tweets, and myself included thought, well, Maryland's ceiling goes down a lot without Pharrell Payne. He's our best player by far. Our front court, when you look at it, is rather kind of lacking. Like in terms of like guys that we feel good about playing there, it's lacking. Like Elijah Sanders is a firm 4. Like he's not a 5. And in terms of 5 men's, like it kind of gets a really thin really quick without Pharrell Payne. You have to do things you don't quite want to do. But now with Pharrell Payne coming back, you kind of get back to where you're expected to be in terms of our team, in terms of still having a good chance at winning games, making the tournament. And before I was like, I just don't know how good of a team we can be without Pharrell Payne. I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure how good of a team that we can be without Pharrell Payne, what our ceiling can be, even what our floor is as a basketball team. I just think he lifts us in every way possible. He's our best player by far. So being able to have him in the lineup and it not being a serious injury after, it looked crazy. It did, but you never want to assume anything. But everyone instantly was like, he's out for the year. But I guess that's not exactly what it is. And so couldn't be more excited about that, to continue to have one of our better players, to continue to have kind of our heart and soul, who Buzz Williams, I would say, trusts the most out of anybody. Being able to have that, I think, is really important for Maryland basketball, to continue to have someone like that. But that's definitely something that's exciting for Maryland basketball. And then I think as we get healthy, this team has a chance to be really solid. I really believe that. After the win against Marquette, and I know Marquette's not having the best year, but after the win against Marquette, after winning some games, this team has a chance to be really solid. I really believe that. We have different guys that can be good for Maryland basketball. We have different guys that can play different roles. And now Diggy Coy is coming out. I really want Miles Rice back, and I like waiting until he's fully healthy because I think he's arguably our best guard. I know Diggy's playing like that, but I think Miles Rice arguably is our best guy in the backcourt, and I think that'll come into fruition as we continue to play games. Like he was our best guard against Georgetown. He was really the only one that could provide some consistency, and I still kind of believe that. If you put the way Diggy's playing next to each other with Miles Rice, and then if Darius Adams can get the shot going a little bit, we obviously know he's going to get to the free throw line. This team has a chance to be really solid. And you get Pharrell Payne back, you got a chance. You do. You have a chance to be a pretty good basketball team in the Big Ten this year. I don't know if we have like a chance. I'm not saying we have a chance to like win a national championship. I'm not quite there with it yet, but we do have an opportunity to be pretty good this year for Maryland basketball, which I think is pretty cool and is pretty exciting for us, and to be able to do that, I think. And there's still a lot of injuries, but as we get healthier over the next couple of weeks, this is the right time to be hurt. Maybe not the best thing to say, but I do think this is if you're gonna be hurt at any point, this is the best time to be able to do it. And we still get a couple of guys back as well that I haven't really mentioned either. Guys that one guy in particular that I'm still really looking forward to getting back is Solomon Washington, the forward who arguably could be one of the better defensive guys in the Big Ten. Solomon Washington, we get him back hopefully soon. I know he's been out all season, and so he's another guy that could really help us. And so as this team gets back to where it's supposed to be, you could be looking at Maryland basketball as a really solid team and a really solid opportunity to be able to get things done. And so that's definitely exciting as well for Maryland basketball. So we'll see what ends up happening, but that's how it's looking right now. But that's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.